Okay, welcome back. We're about to find out if passing data actually works. So let's start our guy up. I'll put in Bob as my name, and I click the button and it comes up and says, hello, Bob. So I was successful at passing data to my other activity. I'll admit the technique in the book is weird. They created a blank activity and then they did some other funky stuff. But I've actually started another activity, so I need to be able to use this get intent guy. Okay, so this is the normal way to do it. All right, now, is this one way? In other words, can I pass something back to the other guy? No. No, I can't. It happens only during the starting process. So when I create the intent, that's when the passing happens. So if something happens afterwards and I want to update it, we've got to come up with some other way of doing it. And I can't pass it in the opposite direction because I'm not creating another intent going in the other direction. So it is a one-way proposition. Okay, so let's stop and talk about intents one more time. So two techniques for using intents. One is to launch another application like a browser. And the other is to do it like this, where I'm manually creating a separate activity inside my application and I pass data to that activity. So let's just look at the common intents that are out there. There's a lot of these guys. Here's one for the alarm clock, because otherwise, how would you know what extra things to pass to it? So here's one where I want to set an alarm, and here's the extras. Remember how you pass extras to it? So you can pass the hours and the minutes and blah 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 blah. There's tons and tons of these things. How to create a timer and what you have to pass to it. Let's go all the way down to the bottom and look at the one for the web page. Here's a good one. Here's web search. So I want to do a web search, and so I can pass some really cool stuff to it about how to instead of just launching a web page, have it figure out whoever my search provider is for my guy. That's actually pretty cool too. And also to others say, anyways, lots and lots of these guys, how to send a text message, on and on and on and on and on. Here's the web browser one where you send it URI like that. Kind of cool. And then do go ahead and show you, here's how you do the stuff in the intent filter, because as I mentioned, when you install the application, it's going to say, do you want to allow all this? Okay, so you've got intents now, right? Good. We're ready to move on. Okay, on page, maybe not. Page 422, they have an example of using the settings page. If you recall, let me get back to my guy here. If you were to create a new application, one of the templates is a setting page. I'm not going to do that, but I'm just saying it already has that. So this whole thing about building a settings page is pretty good idea, except I'm just not going to do it. You're going to get to do it on your own. Now, on page 427, we talk about another topic, and that is I want my data to persist between runs. When I shut down my application, I wanted it to remember my name. So when I bring it up a second time, it's not going to have a blank field asking for my name. I want it to persist between runs. So this has nothing to do with device rotation, has nothing to do with separate intents. This is a completely separate topic on how to make things persist between absolute runs. Okay, so typically it's called shared preferences, and you can kind of sort of tell what they intended this thing to be. In other words, I don't know, like I'm running an application and I tell it, I'd like this to be, I like this, my default font is going to be Times New Roman. And so when you bring it back up, it'll remember what the preferences you had set. That's kind of how they intended this thing to work. However, we can put in other things in it. We can put in your first name, so it won't prompt you for your first name a second time. Okay, so one more time. How is this different in Bundle? Bundle was passing stuff, actually passing things around during the device rotation, during those phase changes, right? So I changed from one activity phase to another activity phase. That's what Bundle's all about. The intent guy didn't use it; just used extra. I don't really think there's a name for it, but you know, the put extra and get extra guys. And now we're talking about something called shared preferences. Okay, just one. I know I repeated that like 3-4 times, but whew, okay, here goes. So what I need now is I need what's called a shared preferences, and then what's called a shared preferences editor, which allows me to add things to it. I know it's kind of weird. So I'm going to go back to my guy here, and so let's. In fact, I'm going to comment this out just because we're going to use it for other things now. Okay, so we got all that, right? Good. All right. So now when you click on the guy, I want to take that name and store it someplace. So here we go. So I start off with saying shared preferences. And, you know, I don't know what I'm going to call mine prefs, you know, something like that. And then I want a shared preferences.editor. And I'll just call it editor. Like that. Okay. So I've got this thing set up so I have the ability to store stuff, and that I have the ability to read and write to it. Okay, cool. So let's assume that when I hit click, I want to save the current name. All right, so here we go. So let's configure this guy. So it's prefs is going to be equal to trying to get the shared preferences. Now here's the part that's kind of weird. It is possible for you to share like your favorite font between applications. So you have a choice of making this shared thing public or private. So I'm going to not do that. So the key to this is going to be like Chapter17, which is the name of my guy. And then I'm going to tell it I specifically don't want that. I'm going to use mode private, which means only this application can see that. I'm not sharing it up between other applications. Okay. And then I have to build an editor. And so the editor is pretty straightforward. I just basically tell it that I want my prefs guy is my edit. So, cool. So now I've populated my guy. And it's time to actually put something in there. Well, I tell you what, I'm just going to uncomment this one line right up here. Yikes, I didn't need to do that. Well, come on, cut it out. Okay, because I need to be able to get to the name to get there. Okay, so I'm going to use my editor on my guy, and then I basically want to tell it I want to put a string in there. Cool. So it's going to be one of those values, a key value pair. So I don't know, I'll call it first name or something. And then the value is going to be the variable name. Okay, and then you have to commit it, because this is like an editor, which means you can put things in, pull things out, you know, query things, do all that kind of stuff, and then you want to save it. So I do editor commit. And commit saves it. All right, so in theory, when I do this, I save my stuff down, and then when I bring the application back, so up here on create, I would go through this all over again, except go through the exact same setup I did here, except instead of putting the string, I would pull the string, okay? Now, I'm not actually going to demo that part. So let me ask you a question. Where should you be doing this? I mean, should you wait until the application is complete? Or maybe you should do it on the on pause or something like that? And so you do have some choices. On pause would be a pretty decent place to make those kind of changes. But quite frankly, I would probably prefer that whenever you changed your name, whenever you did that, immediately go ahead and save it right then and there. Because you don't really, I don't like the idea of things happening at the very end. Like, for example, I don't know, your device is about run out of battery and it's getting ready to shut down. So it notifies all the applications, hey, we need to shut down now. I don't want to have extra activity going on at the very end when it starts closing down. I also don't want to have it so that when I rotate the screen, it goes, oh, hang on, let me go do this, and this. I want it to be snappy. So in that case, I actually prefer saving those shared preferences as soon as the changes are made. When you change your desired font, right then and there, go ahead and commit it. Boom. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Now, I'm not going to bother with the pulling it back out, but you can probably imagine what's going on. It's going to be the same thing. I just pull the guy out from there. Okay. So, let's say I have something complex. If you recall, remember when we did the parsable, when we were doing the device rotation? Because we wanted the device rotation to happen really seamlessly without an awful lot of energy and without taking a lot of time and certainly not consuming any disk space or anything like that. So parsable was a really cool thing that we added to the employee class, if you recall. And then it allowed me to be able to parse that guy and do it great. So is that how this works here? Can I use parsable to store this thing to disk? No. Now, parsable was specifically designed to make it lightweight and to be run in memory. Okay, that was its intent. It was never ever intended to be stored to a disk. I'm using the word disk in quotation marks, obviously. Stored to storage doesn't actually sound right, so just bear with me. This gets stored onto the disk somewhere. Shared preferences that's what it does. But parsable isn't the choice here. So you have to learn yet another technique for doing serialization. The parsable one wasn't the only choice back then when we came across it. It was just the best one for doing device rotation kind of things. Now, I cannot use parsable, and I have no choice but to go in and create yet another thing. So there's some choices here. There's one called JSON. You've probably heard that one, at least I hope you have. XML, and there's a couple of others. Most people use JSON. Now, instead of using the built-in JSON thing that's in Java, there's a really, really good library called, well, it's GSON. I guess it's still pronounced JSON. And so I'm going to stop what we're doing here and show you how you would go about adding a module to your application, okay? Adding an external module to your application. Okay, so there's a complicated way I'm going to show you first. I'm going to open up the thing on Gradle scripts. We're going to grab the module one. See, there's a build Gradle with the project and one with the module. So I'm going to look at this file and scroll down to where it has implementate the dependencies. And what I want to do is I want to add an extra implementation in here to handle this other thing. So I'm going to say implementation, and then I'm going to go in here and tell it that I want com.google.code.json, and then I tell it exactly how I want this thing done. GSON 286. Okay, so what this basically does is it told it that I want you to go out to code.google.com and pull this JSON guy down. Now, this is kind of weird. Another way of doing this, see where it says you have to sync this guy. I tell you what, I'm gonna not sync that guy. I'm gonna show you the other way of doing it. Okay, I'm gonna say ignore. So the better technique is to go to File, Project Structure, and then over here where it says All Dependencies, I'm gonna hit the little plus sign. It's a library dependency, and I'm gonna type in that same thing we typed in before. The backwards URL thing, JSON, and the thing. Hit search, and it'll go out and find it. And it'll find the location where it should download this thing, and then I hit OK and apply. Now, actually, this is pretty cool because it goes out and gets the file that you need. It goes and grabs the jar file from the repository and puts it in the machine. You don't have to do any downloading at all. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. We'll have to see this work a little bit later.